Welcome to Dialogues in Afro-Latinidad, a podcast dedicated to amplifying and elevating Afro-Latinx histories, cultures, and communities across the Americas and beyond. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Reed Vasquez. Join us for conversations with experts and artists to learn more about Afro-Latinidad. Venga. Welcome to the Careers edition of the Dialogues in Afro-Latinidad podcast. In this two-part segment, we'll handle key questions facing professionals on the job market in the interdisciplinary fields of African diaspora studies, especially Afro-Latinidad studies and related ethnic studies fields. So who are we to talk about this? What do we know about all of this? Well, we'll start by introducing ourselves, and then we'll get into it. So I'm Michelle Reed Vasquez. I specialize in the history of the African diaspora in the Caribbean, especially Cuba and Jamaica, as well as Puerto Rico and Haiti, and also Afro-Latinx history in the U.S. Over my career, I've held positions as a postdoctoral fellow, assistant and a tenured professor, and now as an endowed chair. I worked at numerous institutions ranging from public and research universities to private liberal arts colleges. And so I'm excited to share some of my knowledge and what I've learned. And I really want to help demystify being on the job market in academia. So joining me to do this is one of my co-hosts, Erica Edwards.
Hi, I'm Erica Denise Edwards, and I'm a scholar of African American, African diaspora, Africana studies, specifically the histories of the Black women throughout the Americas, post-colonial conversations of what it means to become a state after the colonial period ends. I've worked at UNCC as well as UTEP. I started as a lecturer, and now I'm an associate professor.
Great. And our third co-host is Luana Haish.
Hi, everyone. I'm Luana. I'm a poet and a PhD student at the University of Pittsburgh, where I met Michelle. And my research focuses on Black women's literature and the practice of quilombos, also known as palenques, cimarrones, maroon communities. And I'm also the founding director of the poetry organization Adverse. And we were very lucky to have Michelle as our advisor for a few incredible years, helping shape our vision and impact. And I'm in my first job as a lecturer in the Department of Spanish and Portuguese at Princeton University. And I'm very excited to share my journey and hopefully inspire my fellow international students navigating similar paths.
Great. I also want to highlight that we have known each other, as Luana mentioned, for a while as colleagues and friends, and we lean on each other for support, especially on the job market. So given the challenges facing academia as we record this session in July of 2025, our goal is to serve as a resource in these uncertain times. We don't know what the job market will look like this fall or in the future, but that's actually how a lot of us in Afro-Latinx and African diaspora studies have always had to operate. We just don't know what kinds of jobs will be available, but we do know ways to help you be more prepared and more strategic within that process. We hope you'll find our points of conversation helpful, and please know that we do see you, truly. And don't forget to follow the Dialogues in Afro-Latinidad podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Instagram at Afro-Latinidad Institute. And you'll be able to find the specific resources mentioned in this episode on our website at michellereedvasquez.com/dialogues in Afro-Latinidad podcast.
And we want to frame today's discussion around a common question from female news scholars on the market. This one comes from Natalie. She says, I'm finishing up my dissertation, and I'm struggling to land a full-time position as either an assistant professor or lecturer of modern languages and Afro-Hispanic literature. I applied to over 30 jobs last year, but only had 4 interviews, and all of them were unsuccessful. What am I doing wrong?
Well, unfortunately, that's actually a pretty typical experience. I've been on search committees where they received up to 200, sometimes 300 applications for one position. If you've done your part by creating a strong cover letter and supporting materials, and you know your recommendation letters are strong, then the issue is likely some other factor that's outside of your control. But since Natalie had 4 interviews, then that's really half the battle. Clearly, she knows how to make her application stand out. But she might need help with the interview phase, for example, which we'll talk about in part 2. So hang in there, Natalie. More information is coming.
Yeah, Natalie, I just want to chime in and say 4 interviews is really good, okay? Especially if you have not finished your PhD. I'm sure you learned a lot through that process, and I would suggest to continue to build on that. But don't be discouraged. Reality check, and this is very important for everyone to know, sometimes rejection has nothing to do with you. There could be issues with the department, with the institution, politics that honestly you will not be aware of. The only thing you can control is your application. And also make sure that you continue to work with your mentors to improve the application materials. And of course, always, always grow your social network.
So let's talk about what Natalie can do, the part that they can control, like where to find job postings. Maybe she needs to broaden her scope.
Or maybe she needs to adjust the kinds of positions she's applying for.
Or she might also want to expand her professional network. In this episode, we'll address each of these issues, each of these areas, with the goal of helping Natalie and others on the market to be more strategic and hopefully more successful in their job search.
So let's get into it. So we're talking to those of you who are new on the job market, but then also for those, similar to myself, who wanted to change academic jobs. The first is you must identify the positions that you would like to apply for, and in doing so, really focusing on your expertise and your skills. That means you have to look everywhere, not just your typical places that possibly, in my case, you looked at maybe 10 years ago, right? Social media has changed dramatically. So some of the common places I would suggest is like HNet, of course, Chronicle of Higher Education, Inside Higher Ed. But then again, for those that are more specialized, think of OSWALD, which stands for the Association for the Worldwide Study of African Diaspora, Caribbean Studies Association, the African American Intellectual History Society. Don't also always remember the Association of Black Women Historians as well. So there's a lot of specialized organizations to also look at as well.
And don't forget the academic job wikis for your different areas. So for instance, academic jobs in African and African American studies also include positions in Afro-Latinx and Caribbean studies. There's also the ethnic studies job wiki. That one is really more geared towards specialists in literature, but you can also find jobs on the African diaspora and Latinx studies. The job wikis also provide really important information on the status of these positions once the whole process has begun. So whether they've started, for example, doing virtual interviews, or if they've made any offers, or if there's other useful information available, those sites can help demystify what's going on in the background when people aren't communicating with you.
Okay, so for my fellow international students, one of the most important things you can do is build a strong network of care and support within and beyond academia. You don't have to go through this journey alone. Seek mentors, connect with peers, and establish relationships both within your institution and with international networks. When it comes to job opportunities in the United States, it's so important to stay informed about the options available under your visa status. For F1 visa holders, regularly check updates from UCIS, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service website, because rules change and staying current will help you make informed decisions. F1 students can take advantage of optional practical training or OPT that allows you to work in the U.S. for up to 12 months and a role directly related to your field of study. And you can also apply for OPT before or even after graduation. And also visit your school's international student office regularly. Monitor your home country's international studies initiative and explore organizations that support early career scholars. Programs like Fulbright and orgs like the Social Science Research Council, the American Council of Learned Societies can offer guidance, funding, and career development opportunities. And I really want to emphasize how important it is to stay connected because opportunities often come through people. So nurture relationships across borders and disciplines. These connections can open unexpected doors.
Yes. So let's talk also a little bit about job categories. So Natalie mentioned she applied to lecturer and assistant professor positions, but there are others she might want to consider. For someone new on the academic job market, the major areas are tenure track, so that's assistant professor, and tenured, so associate and full. There's also visiting professor and lecturer, as well as postdoctoral fellowships. Tenured and tenure track positions are long-term appointments, and if you're hired in a tenure track job, you typically have roughly 6 years to complete the requirements to earn tenure, which in some institutions, but not all, means that you have a permanent position. But in the current climate, tenure track and tenure positions are on the decline, but they're also often critical for developing a long-term career as a scholar. So keep your eyes peeled, look around, see what's going on in the market.
Two other categories are lecturers and visiting professors. And how are those different? A lecturer is a common temporary position. Candidates are usually hired annually, and the position can often be renewed each year. This is primarily a teaching job with a full course load, anywhere from around 4 to 8 classes a year. And while they don't carry the same kind of career stability as those in the tenure category, most provide health care coverage. An adjunct professor is a part-time lecturer with similar responsibilities, but they don't receive any benefits. The visiting professor category is also a temporary position, but considered more prestigious. The appointment typically lasts 1 to 2 years and carries a full teaching course load. Colleges announce this for a variety of reasons, but usually it's to cover courses in specific topics or geographic areas when professors are on sabbatical or have retired or departed for another position. But be careful because some places they list position as visiting, but it's really an adjunct position.
And finally, there's the postdoctoral job. So these are also temporary. They're 1 to 2 year positions, but they're also considered really prestigious for all of the benefits that they carry. These are designed to support scholars who are early in their career, so usually no more than 3 to 5 years beyond the PhD. And postdocs usually offer a lighter teaching load or no teaching at all, as well as opportunities to complete research and writing and to network with scholars across campus. And in many cases, postdocs are designed to support candidates in obtaining that coveted tenure track position. That makes these postdocs really highly competitive.
But also keep in mind that each area of the academic job market has its own what we would call season. So let's break this down in terms of calendar and seasons and such. So we've got, think of this, spring and summer, before you go on the market, get your stuff together, or as they would say, get it together, right? So your cover letters, your CVs, sample writings, and this may sound obvious, but sometimes we forget, let those that you want to write letters, let them know that you actually want them to do this with some time, because no one can write a good letter within 24 hours. So give them a heads up that this is what you're doing. Another thing, work with your mentors, work with them, work with faculty, other students, other colleagues that you have, do mock interviews. Let everyone, and I mean everyone in your network, know that you are on the job market, okay? That being said, so in general, tenure track, tenured, postdoc positions, typically ads for them run between mid-August to October, with deadlines ranging from mid-September to early December. So just keep that in mind. The fall semester, again, tenure track, tenured postdoc positions.
And the next part of the season deals with interview notifications and job offers. Requests for virtual interviews, the long shortlist of about 10 to 12 candidates can come up from late fall through December. And we will talk more about preparing for interviews in our next segment. Invitations to visit campus, a short list of 3 to 4 candidates usually take place from November through February. And job offers typically come a few weeks after the last on-campus candidates interview. Here's where checking the job wiki can come in handy to learn about updates.
And I know that's a lot. There's a lot to think about, to keep organized, to keep structured. So you need to keep yourself organized. So you need to, if it requires creating a spreadsheet with positions, do that. Fill in the position, the institutions, the areas of study, the required application materials, the deadlines. You want it all there so you can just check things quickly. Be sure to use your professional email on your application materials. You don't want some crazy Hotmail, Gmail address. You want to be professional. And also don't forget to professionalize your social media, because people outside your network will look you up, and it can work in your favor if everything is all in place and the way that you want it, and not something crazy popping up out of nowhere.
I definitely want to emphasize that, right? So make sure your social media is on point, as you would say. Make sure, again, those emails, right? What may have worked in high school, college, grad school, most likely may not be working later on in life, especially you trying to get a job. So again, cast a wide net. And what do I mean by that? Okay, so not just looking at, the job postings and different types of postings that you can apply for, but think within your own social network, okay? Luana, you recently, applied for a position, and you're finishing up your lecturer position now at Princeton. Tell us how you cast a wide net.
So, Erica, my friends were so important in getting this job. My friend Mauricio, he graduated from Princeton in the Spanish and Portuguese department, and he sent me an email with a job call. I was still deep in my dissertation, and honestly, I thought, there's no way. But then a few days later, another friend from Brazil, Felipe, he sent me the exact same call, and he said, you should apply. But I was still not convinced. But then a third friend, Cesar, he sent the same call, and then that's when I thought, okay, universe, I hear you. I guess I'm applying for this position. Then I got to work. I had a whole community behind me. Friends helped me polish my materials, including Luis, who is now my colleague. A social media group was also a big help. Even though I never met most of them in person, they offered so much guidance on cover letters, statements, interviews, everything. I believe my work with the poetry organization Adverse also helped me a lot, because through that platform, I could amplify the activities I have been doing, both in literature and in language teaching, and also gave me the energy to continue in academia when I wanted to give up. And Michelle, you've been an incredible mentor. I'm truly grateful for the inspiration you bring into this space. You remind me that a different and more supportive academia is not only possible, but it's already in the making.
Oh, thank you, Luana. That really means a lot. I've just seen so many talented people struggle and burn out from academic careers because they don't have the support they need, and it really should not be that way.
Well, Michelle, I'm interested. How did you come to be then? How did you make it so then you're not burnt out, as you would say today?
It's been a long journey, but I've been doing this for many years now, and so I've had several positions, I think, that have helped me determine where I need the support and how I wanted to make that change. So my first position was as an assistant professor of history for about 7 years. Actually, I should say I actually started with a postdoc fellowship, and so from there, the assistant professor position came. And that position in particular, I think I owe a lot to my network of my dissertation co-advisors. They were really serious about helping me find a job. So I think I was particularly fortunate to have them in my corner. Then at that position is where I really kind of decided, okay, I'm kind of done with academia. I don't know if this is going to work for me. I was thinking of it as like any relationship. You evolve and you have different priorities, and maybe it's time to move on. And but I just didn't know, I felt like I needed to get more out of this kind of position. So the Interverse intervened like it does, as Luana mentioned, and after numerous applications that were really focused specifically on Caribbean history, I had 2 on-campus interviews, and I landed my next job in Africana Studies. And I think my experience getting grants along with my research, my scholarship helped to make that happen. And after 10 years at that university, honestly, I figured I would just stay and move up to senior leadership. So I wasn't even looking for new opportunities. I just figured I would stay here and just move up to, vice chancellor, vice provost, something like that. But out of nowhere, it seemed, I was recruited for my current position, which is as an endowed chair at Bowdoin College, with joint appointments in the Latin American, Caribbean, and Latinx Studies program and the Africana Studies department. And so they recruited me, and that's a great position to be in. Based on my previous work in Afro-Latinidad through my research on slavery and freedom and Black mobility in 19th century Cuba and throughout the Caribbean, but also on my more recent work in digital humanities through my Afro-Latinidad Studies Institute, and particularly this podcast. I think my evolution into the digital space really expanded my professional network in ways that I never thought could have happened, that I never could have anticipated. And Erica, what's your journey? Tell us your story.
I think it's like most, right? First job I took. I wasn't exactly excited at the time. I was finishing my graduate career in Miami, Florida, enjoying all that Miami has. And my first job was in Charlotte, North Carolina. So that was a huge transition, right? But I needed the money. And I remember when I got the position, I was actually a lecturer, and I remember being so excited because it was $40K. I had never made that before in my life. I remember screaming, I was so excited. The money, not so much Charlotte at the time. But anyway, so next year after that, I then applied for and got a tenure track position in the history department. So it's really interesting to see within the same institution, I went from Africana Studies, which is where I had the lectureship, to history. And I think that's an important point to continuously remember. How you can diversify your research can also help you in terms of applying for jobs, getting jobs, and just increasing your network. So in Africana Studies, I taught classes that pertain primarily to the African diaspora, Afro-Latin America. And then in history, I actually shifted, and it was more about Latin America, the colonial period, state formation, nation building. In total, I remained at UNCC for about 12 years. But then in 2021, I decided that I was ready to go back on the job market, and I was tenured. And I can say this, I think more than one person said, why would you do that, right? You already have a position, this is during COVID, you're nuts. And I'll admit it, I probably am a bit nutty. I did it, I'm happy I did it. Why? Because I realized my first book had already came out, right? And it was actually quite successful, so it increased my social network dramatically. As well as allowed for me to really think about truly where I wanted to go next. So it was a deliberate choice for me to really think about, well, what type of institution I want to go to. So I applied actually to both associate and assistant level positions, because my view is I'm not going to tell myself no. Someone else will tell me no. So I did, and I applied to a total of about 8 institutions, got about 4 interviews, and 2 on-campus invitations. To my surprise, my home institution was very keen on keeping me, which I thought was really, really cool and nice, and it was amazing. And so during that process, I learned a lot of patience in terms of negotiations, but I'll be honest, as soon as I got to UTEP, I knew that this was home.
I love this. Love hearing these stories. But I want to get back to Natalie for a minute. So hopefully you'll see these, and everyone listening will see that these are different examples of how different your paths can be to getting into academia and staying in academia. And we said a lot today, so why don't we close with a few key takeaways?
One key takeaway is to use mainstream and specialty academic jobs, sites, and wikis, and understand the kind of position or positions that you were applying for.
Also, get organized. Start early by preparing your materials. Make yourself stand out by connecting your specific and adjacent expertise to the position.
And of course, as I keep saying, and I really hope that this is not the time to be shy. Let people know that you're looking for a position, that you're out there, you're on the job market. Lean into all of your networks, your personal friends, professional friends, anybody that you can think of in terms that would potentially help you continue to basically echo the call that you're on the job market. Professionalize your social media. And what I mean, and I want to stress that, before you finally send and click submit, right, for an application, make sure you've gone through your Instagram, make sure you've gone through your Facebook, your X, your Blue Sky, your whatever, right, and either shut it down or clean it up, right? You want to make sure that those potential employers know the best parts of you and the professional side of you. And of course, don't get discouraged. It is not easy out there. It is hard. There's no doubt about it, but we're here to help.
And we hope Natalie and our listeners have found this really helpful. Links to all the information we mentioned will be available on our episode resources pages at michellereedvasquez.com/dialogues in Afro-Latinidad podcast.
And please join us for part 2, where we will offer advice on how to interview for interdisciplinary positions and Afro-Latinidad, the African diaspora, and related ethnic studies fields.
And if you have any questions or if you want to offer feedback, reply on our YouTube channel, Dialogues in Afro-Latinidad, or email us at afrolatinidadinstitute@gmail.com.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time on Dialogues in Afro-Latinidad.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and hear more episodes of Dialogues in Afro-Latinidad on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And go to michellereedvasquez.com to check out our episode resources and learn more about the Afro-Latinidad Studies Institute.